Howdy folks, Andy Gamer Muzzer here, and we're on Elite Dangerous and it's Law tonight.
And good evening everybody, welcome to
there's the man.
Elite Dangerous Law Tour. We are live on Thursday evenings once again, and the hat is in place, the hat of law. The hat of law. My powers are strong. Lovely to see you all. Thank you very much for popping along once more. We are here in Dublin Citadel in the gateway system. So if you're not there already, get yourselves over to Dublin Citadel in the gateway system. Is it my breakfast hat? No, I'm a proper gentleman alien. You should know that. I don't normally wear a hat indoors. That's not really de rigueur for hats, is it? Hats for outdoors generally. But I'm a space pirate in Elite. So hey. It works, okay. So hence the hat. And as you can see, I'm getting a bit of a mullet now, and this is lockdown hair though. I'm getting, and it's all in my ears. I really need a haircut, but there we go. So there we go. Other than that, good. Welcome one and all to the Elite Dangerous Law Tour. So we are here. We are actually cranking on now with the tour. We are two sessions away from the end of the first bit of the tour. So we have covered down a lot of the law already. We have covered a lot. We have still got the Guardians and the Salome story to go. That's the end of the actual official tour. But then we've got the extended tour, which is the piece where we're actually going on a kind of expedition out into the black a little way to across the Formidine Rift. So if you want to keep accompanying us for that, then do a little bit more detail about that as we go through. You will need a ship with a slightly longer jump range than I've been specifying for the immediate law tour though, because it's a bit further and some of the gaps are quite big. So the extended tour is coming up. So yeah, actually you may even be able to bring a fleet carrier along. That would be quite good to see. So my lockdown locks. I like that. I might pitch that. So that's really good. So anyway, so first things first, Dublin Citadel in the gateway system. This is where we are today. So if you are lucky and want to join me in my instance, let's see how well it works. But outside Dublin Citadel for the first set of screenies. Okay, so let's get cracking out there. So fly ship. As you can see, I am an expert pilot. I always forget to recenter my thrust thingamajig. There we go. Right. So here we go. Right. So welcome to Commander Blade Gwyn and Commander Drewer, which is actually quite appropriate, who have joined me in my wing this evening. I can see a whole bunch of ships out here, so that's very cool. So that's awesome to have you all around. So we are talking tonight about the Alliance. So this is kind of the last of the three great superpowers. We've talked about the epic history of the Empire. We've talked about the epic history of the Federation and where they both came from in the early part of Elite law. Now the Alliance is much later on. The Alliance is much later on. And to kind of get an appreciation, how do I zoom out of here again? I thought it was. Oh, I thought it was plus and minus. I've got a feeling all my key bindings. Has other people had problems with key bindings in the last couple of weeks? Because mine have just suddenly. Some of them disappeared last week. I don't know what was going on. So I'm not quite sure. Let's just turn the UI back on. Oh, I've got to be in the free camera suite. That's why. It's entirely my fault then. That should now zoom out. There we go. Right, so we can see some of the other ships that are kicking about. Awesome. Oh, very nice crate. Lovely. I do like the camera. That's awesome. So anyway, there we go. That explains why that wasn't working. It's entirely my fault. So we are here in the gateway system. Now, the gateway system is very important to the Alliance, and we'll come to that. But the Alliance is a new phenomenon. Okay, the Alliance is a relatively new phenomenon in Elite Dangerous chronology. Okay, the Alliance is literally it's just about. In fact, it's not even quite 100 years old in the Elite Dangerous law. It's really new political structure. Okay, so you remember a few weeks ago we talked about Galcop. Now Galcop was around for hundreds of years, but it collapsed over 100 years ago. And kind of from the ashes of Galcop, in some ways. You know, it almost made space for the Alliance to appear. In some ways, Galcop and the Alliance have got a lot of similarities, but Galcop is history, the Alliance is current. So, yeah, we need to go back in time a little bit again to figure out exactly what was going on with the politics of the universe at the time in order to figure out exactly what the Alliance was and where it came from and what caused it to be. Back in the time of the original Elite, Galcop only. The Federation and the Empire did exist technically in the lore, but they weren't present in the game. In the second game, which is where we're going to start for a moment, you'll find that this is where the whole Alliance thing begins to appear. So I'm going to fire up my trusty DOS box. So for those of you who haven't seen this, I'm just going to pop it up here and switch to DOS box mode. So this is 16-bit we're going here for this first game. Sorry for being a couple of people said, why haven't you got this all done with a match file? I said, well, you're taking out part of the fun of the game. This is all part of the experience. I'm not doing format C. No, I'm not. So yeah, getting these games to run on modern computers is actually part of the challenge. So there we go. We're going to run Frontier now. For those of you who don't know, I haven't been following along with the game. This is the second Elite game. Okay, this is from 1993. And there we go. So I know you can do a short box, yeah. But I like typing in the commands. It makes me feel like I'm there, because that's what you had to do in the olden days. So this is the original game. It has some very funky music, which you can probably just about hear. But it is actually an awesome intro. It has been remade. In fact, it's even been remade for Elite Dangerous on a couple of occasions. I just need to up speed my emulation. I think it's Control F12. Why isn't that working? Maybe I have to do it in here because it's. There we go. I have to give my emulated computer more power in order to get the frame rate to come up. So where are we meeting? We're in Dublin Citadel in the Gateway system. Okay, so we don't need to watch the entire intro. Most of you will be familiar with it. So if I just quickly pop back to this screen here, you'll notice that I've had to increase the emulated CPU speed in order to get the frame rate up. There's not many computers you can do that on, which is quite good fun. So anyway, so the DOS box. So right, so if I start this game, right, there we go. Now I'm going to start with a recommended start position, just temporarily. I just want to show you something, okay? Because this is, as you can see, 1993. This is the year 3200 in the Elite time frame. So here we go. And we're amazing graphics. Look at that. The sky is pink. Hey, we've got planetary landings. No, we don't talk about the Imperial Courier. We're not going there. So let me show you the Galactic Map. Okay, now this is the Galactic Map of this period in time. Notice the year is 3200. It's the 1st of January. Okay. Now we are in, as you can see, the core systems. This is what the bubble used to be called. Okay, before the bubble, it used to be called the core systems. Everyone calls it the bubble now for reasons, but there we go. Now this is, as you can see, the core systems, and they are centered around, not surprisingly, Sol. Okay, we are in federal space at this point in time. If we go south or down, okay, from I mean, that doesn't obviously make much sense in space, but you know what I mean, okay? If we go down, we will end up ultimately in the Imperial systems, okay? The Imperial systems. So in 3200, there is the Empire, centered around, as we know, Akanar. And this game goes, as you see, it goes back to 1993. This is when this game was made, and it is, this is where this piece of lore starts. So the Empire exists in the year 3200, obviously, okay. And core systems is effectively where the Federation is, okay. Federal space centered around Sol. But notice up here, we can look around, and there is nothing up here as far as any kind of political structure. It doesn't exist, okay? there's nothing else mentioned, which is interesting. There is a planet here you can see named Ultiq. Okay, the Ultiq. That's important because we'll come across it. There's another important system. It's called Alioth. Now notice the in-game description here in the year 3200. Disputed system. Okay, disputed system. Now what that means is there's some kind of, Barney going on, as we would say in the UK. There's an argument. It's there's two sides contesting this system, and it doesn't take too much to guess who those two sides are. Okay, it's the Federation and it's the Empire. Alioth is a disputed system at this time in the Elite Dangerous Law. Okay, and also Veliers. That's the system that disappears. What we talked about with the Thargoids last week. That was quite interesting. And Inra and all that kind of stuff. And I've lost it now. But anyway, there was a system called Ultiq, which is quite important as well. Okay, so that's the second game. Okay, 3200. So let's just quit out there. Now, if I go back to DOSBox again very quickly and fire up the third game. So this is 2 years later in our time frame. And sorry, I'm just going to have to reset that. That wasn't very clever of me. This is set, this is written 2 years later, 1995, in the, in our universe. But in the universe of Elite Dangerous, it's 50 years on. Okay, 50 years on until we get the second game. Now, graphically, it looks very, very similar, and we've talked about that as well. There's a whole bit of controversy about this back in the day, but don't worry about that now. So this one's written in 95. Note this ship. We'll come back to that ship in a bit. That's an important ship that you just saw fly past. This slightly unusual ship, which has a very odd sort of wagging tail. Strange thing to have on the ship, but we will find out about that later on. It's a very important ship in the Elite Dangerous Law, possibly. Okay, so that's a thing. Right, so let's get over to here, and let's have a look at the map here. Now notice here the year is. I've got to switch off this horrible music. Hang on a minute. Sound effects, music off. God, it's awful. Right, so now suddenly, dun dun dun, we're in Alliance space, and we have a planet called, you guessed it, Gateway. Okay, Gateway. So, and here we have Alioth again. Okay, now that Ultiq place has actually been renamed to Gateway. So Ultiq no longer exists; it was renamed Gateway. One of the reasons we're here. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Today it's just an outdoor jungle world with tourism and agriculture. Notice now the description of Alioth is capital of the Aliiance. The ship known as legally distinguishable from Blake 7. Very good. So something clearly significant has happened between the year 3200 and the year 3250 in the Elite Dangerous Law. Because in 3200, Alioth is a disputed system. There is no alliance. And in the year 3250, it's the capital of the Alliance. And all the stars hereabouts are members of the Alliance. Okay? So what is this? What happened? And what's the Alliance all about? Okay, so I'm going to leave this one running because we may need this in a bit. Trying to figure out how to minimise it. There we go. Right, and then we'll go back to the main full screen where we are now in the year 33. Is it 3306 or 3307? I've forgotten. But anyway, it's now. Okay, in the Elite Dangerous Law. So here we are in the Gateway system. Now, yeah, it is 3306. Fantastic. Now, you will remember that from previous Law Tours, we've talked about, the Federation came from Earth. The Federation was kind of the US one, and then expanded into space. Sent Voyager, sent generation ships out into space, sent capitalism out into space, and conquered last number of worlds. Some people disagreed with that. They went off even further and founded the Empire. The Empire was founded in controversy, and all sorts of weird and wonderful things happened there. They became an imperial construct, and the two have been vying with each other for years and years and years, centuries, in fact. During that time, the old colonies appeared, Lave and Deso and Leasty and all those kind of places. The bubble has slowly been expanding and expanding and expanding, but there's always been these two superpowers, and they've always effectively been at kind of not quite at war. Sometimes they have been at war, but a lot of the time they haven't been at war, fighting. They've kind of been in a Cold War, and they've been trying to annex systems, and they've been trying to do all this sort of stuff, and this stuff has been going on for a long time. Okay, this stuff has been going on for a long time. So these worlds, I'm just going to look up the dates because I can't. There's a lot of detail about the Alliance, but not a lot of it is represented in game. There aren't many tourist beacons about the Alliance. Okay, it's quite hard to dig up information on them. So the area around this. The Alioth star system, was settled in about the 25th century. This is quite a long time ago. Okay, so the generation ships and the early hyperspace stuff that came along in this sort of area of Elite Dangerous was pretty early on, 25th century sort of stuff. So if we look at the galactic map, I'm just going to jump back in my ship for a moment. If we have a look at the map here, and we zoom out a little bit, we can see that this part of space, and we can see loads and loads of people around. Notice where we are, approximately. So I'm going to zoom around. There we go. So Sol is down there, down at the bottom. Akinar is way further down. So this expansion was kind of the opposite way to the Empire. And we can see other places that we've been, Lave and the other places are kind of over here towards the Coalsack Nebula. So this is kind of up, away from the Empire, so it's in a completely different direction. And this is the Federation really trying to assert its hold on other areas of space and, expand and conquer, get resources and so on and so forth, in order to combat the expanse of the Empire. Because the Empire was doing quite well. And here's the Federation trying to do the same sort of thing. But the Empire knew this was happening. Okay, the Empire knew this was happening, so they were trying to expand and colonize things as well. So this area of space became heavily contested between the Federation and the Empire around about this sort of time. So 25th century onwards, all of these areas became contested, and where we are now, what used to be called Alta Cuba is now called Gateway, was actually a federal base. And this is where a lot of Federation strongholds were kind of kept for controlling this region of space. So this became like a staging post for the Federation at this point in time. So that was a kind of big deal. And a lot of stuff was done in this area to bolster the Federation's influence in this kind of area of space. And then what begins to happen is that the Federation discovers that there are a lot of resources, way more than anybody expected, in the Alioth system. So the initial forays into it in about the 25th century, they start finding minerals, they start finding all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff in the Alioth system, and it's like there's suddenly like a gold rush into this area of space. And people who are living in the Alioth system start to play off the Empire and the Federation against each other. They keep doing deals, okay? And they kind of, there's weapons smuggling, and there's like minor conflicts in the system. It's all very lawless, okay? It's kind of like the Wild West in space at this point in time. And there's a mix of different kind of minor organisations, and they're all kind of vying for money basically inside the Alioth system. And so the Federation and the Empire are brought into like a proxy conflict. They're fighting wars, sometimes supporting some of the factions, sometimes supporting some of the other factions. It becomes quite a mess. And there's people in the Alioth system who've kind of cottoned onto the fact that, hang on, there's a stacked load of resources in this system. Why don't we keep it for ourselves? And basically the Federation and the Empire basically go, no, we're not having this. We're not having this at all. We need this system to be one of ours, and so it keeps passing from one hand to the other. The Empire invades it, then the Federation invades it, then there's a local group who perform a coup, and they call on the Federation to help against the Empire, and then the next time they call again the Empire for help against the Federation, and there's a lot of fighting going on. The Alioth system is a right mess, basically. For a long time. And it's all to do with the resources in the system. Lots of hydrocarbon resources, lots of rare minerals, and they're all competing with each other. So within the system, you'd have federal forces, chasing after one type of resource. Then you'd have the Empire, supporting another faction, chasing up another resource, and so on and so forth. So it's set for a massive conflict. Okay, and this is all in the years leading up to 3200. It's very, very tense. And it's very, very messy. And as we come into the 34th century, around the 3200, it's a powder keg ready to go off. This whole area of space. It's sort of become a proxy war. It's a bit like kind of North Korea and South Korea being fed by much bigger superpowers in the background. And there's disputes in the system. There's disputes in the system around this sort of space. So Alioth becomes this powder keg of conflict between the proxy forces of the Federation and the Empire, and it becomes really tense. Now into this steps a man. Okay, into this steps a man, and we're going to see if we can find out a little bit more about him, because he is a very interesting figure. And I'm just going to see if I can quickly find out something here, which I meant to look up, but I couldn't. My internet was being very dodgy earlier on. Let me just check something. Where are we going? Hang on a minute. Okay. Yeah. So we have a man called Mik Turner. Okay, now those of you who know your Elite Dangerous will have heard of this guy. He's put into the lore in a number of places. He's quite mysterious, and he comes from a planet called Asafa. Now, the planet Asafa does not exist, or sorry, the system Asafa does not exist in Elite Dangerous. So his lore is a bit strange. So the way it's spelt is this way, and it's mentioned in the old lore, but the system does not exist in Elite Dangerous. Okay, so Mik Turner comes from the Asafa system, wherever that is. Now, we know that some systems get renamed across the years, so I'm just going to do a quick check, because I must admit I didn't check this earlier on, I didn't have time. Let's just see if it's in, I don't know if it's anywhere in this game at all. Actually, I don't know how to search. I don't think even there is a search capability in this version of the game. I don't think there is. This UI is so good that I can't actually see the the UI at certain times. I don't think there's a search capability, unless anybody can remember how it works. But the system seems to be written in the lore, but doesn't appear to be in the game. So Mick Turner is a guy who comes from this system which doesn't exist. Okay, doesn't exist. Another phantom system. We've come across a few of these across the year. Now, some of them have been renamed. Like AltaQ has been renamed to Gateway. We know about that. The Velier system, as we found out the other week, has mysteriously disappeared, or possibly been renamed. But it's also changed its star type, so that's a little bit weird as well. So there's some inconsistencies that maybe, do we trust the galactic map as it's presented to us? Maybe there's some weird and wonderful things being hidden behind the scenes. So, but Mick Turner steps into this fray. Now, he's born in the lore in the year 3205. And he's born into this powder keg of political tension between the Empire and the Federation, vying for the resources of this area of space. Now that sort of implies that the Asafa system, wherever it is, if it still exists, if it ever existed, is somewhere around here. Okay, it's somewhere around here. Interesting enough, Ulexia here, as you can see, is a system where I've got one of my ships stored. Now that's actually a system of mine. That was my Kickstarter reward. And it's been placed in Aliiance space, which is okay. I don't mind that. I didn't particularly ask for it to be there, but I'm kind of sort of vaguely proud that it's an Aliiance system. And this area of space is now Aliiance space, as you can see. And there are also here, you'll notice, some other systems of note that if you've been playing the game with engineers, you'll also be aware of as well. So some of those places are quite cool. But Mick Turner is a key figure. Now, why is Mick Turner a key figure? Well, he comes up as a pilot, and he moves to Alioth, and in the year 3228. So this guy is about 23 years old at this point in time. He is seeing federal corruption once more. See those dirty rotten feds are doing their thing. They're basically running a kind of cartel, raising prices of supplies into this area of space, and basically there's a revolt. Okay, citizens of Alioth, the independent people, take over ships in that space station. And basically stage a coup. They stage a coup. Whether he's called Mike or Mick, I'm not sure. I've always sort of called him Mick, but maybe it's Mike. It could be Mike. I've always kind of sort of had it in my head that it rhymes with Nick. But anyway, whatever you choose. But I'm going to call him Mick because that's kind of how I always. So they were definitely fed up, and so. He is at the age of 23. Okay, so he's not particularly old. He's caught in this thing, but he is a good pilot. Okay, he actually, somehow masterminds this coup of the Alioth system, and unusually, the Federation and the Empire, actually team up at this point to deal with it. But in order to see exactly what happens there, we need to go to the Alioth system. So let's do exactly that. So for those of you who got your ships ready, set course. And now you will need a permit for this, which I've been asking you to get. So if you don't have the permit for Alioth, you won't be able to get in. Okay. So you may need to multi-crew to somebody who does. Alioth is not that far away, as you can see, but you do need the permit in order to get in. Make sure you've got that. Well, it's a bit late. It'll take you a couple of hours to get it if you don't have it. So if you don't have it, grab a multi-crew session with somebody who does. But that's where we're going next. So set course for the Alioth system. We're going to go there. So I'm just going to try not to run over anybody else's ship. Lovely collection of ships. I love the British Army version there of the Cobra. That's really cool. And we all sort of split up and start moving away. Awesome. I'm just trying to make sure I don't bump anybody else's ship. That's a lovely looking Cobra. Whose is that? The Vulcan. That's awesome. Nice one. Woo! Just crushing the zombie ship. Reckless flying, yes, I know. It's outrageous, isn't it? Heading for Alioth system. Right, here we go. So, set course for Alioth. We'll get there. It's actually... Oh, it's Stephen Usher's ship. Excellent. I'm glad you're in the same instance. A bespoke paint job. Very nice. And actually a Vulcan bomber. I love it. A bespoke paint job. I didn't know you could get bespoke paint jobs. I'm a bit jealous of that. Some stuff. Here we go. Off to the Alioth system. This hyperspace stuff never gets old. It's really cool. And off to Alioth we go. Oh, okay, so you got a bespoke paint job instead of a physical thing. Oh, nice. Okay. Well, you must. I presume you're the only guy in Elite Dangerous who has that. Then is that right? Wow. Okay, well, I'm just going to refuel because habits. Okay. Can see a lot of people here who obviously do have the Alioth permit, which is great. So well done, guys. Now we need to head to. Let me just get this up. We need to head to a space station called, and you can see the Alioth history, so if you do want to check out the tourist beacons, then feel free to go and have a look at those as well. We are heading to down 4, there we go. We are heading to, there's Mick Turner as well, so there's a little bit more history there to go. Let's go to, that's Turner's World, let's go to Donaldson's Port, okay, Donaldson's Port. Around Turner's World. And all will be explained. I do like this supercruiser assist, so there we go. Donaldson. Donaldson is the space station we're heading for. Supercruiser is active, that's awesome. So, Mick Turner then, or Mik Turner. I think it's Mick, I'm pretty sure it's Mick, we'll find out. He's a young man, he's a space pilot, he's a good space pilot, and he's caught in the midst of this this coup where the people of Alioth have kind of revolted against mostly against the federal corruption, but you know, Mick Turner pushes this assault back. Okay, so federal imperial forces join together to try and take Alioth, get it under control, but independent systems around this area join with the rebels in the Alioth system, headed up by Mik Turner, and they push the Empire and the Federation back. Okay, and there are these cells, if you like, of resistance called they're called the Cakers, or which I think is the right way to pronounce them, They form this resistance to the rule of the Federation and the Empire, you know, this entire kind of powder keg then kind of basically explodes, and the Federation and the Empire are pushed back out of the Alioth system. So this becomes you know, a source of big embarrassment for both of the two main political entities, the Federation and the Empire. It becomes highly embarrassing. Now, the Empire is the first to give up. Okay. The Empire is the first to give up, and the reason the Empire gives up, if you recall from the galactic chart, the Empire is a long way from home at this point. They're on the opposite side of the Federation, and they realise that they've got problems with their supply line. Okay, they've got problems with their supply line operating at such a distance, and they basically look at this and go, "This is not economic for us. You know, it's one system. Yes, it's got a lot of resources in it, but it's too costly. We are better off not fighting at such a distance and not fighting over a single system." So the Empire effectively stops. Okay, the Empire effectively stops. That leaves the Federation kind of on its own, and they continue trying to suppress the you know, the Alioth system for many years. Okay, and so this is rumbling on for quite a long time, but eventually, the politics of the Federation, it's kind of a bit like the Vietnam War for America in the sort of late 60s, 70s. It just becomes politically unpopular. It becomes expensive. The Federation is chucking money at this problem, and the Alioth system just will not submit. Okay, no matter what they do, they're doing guerrilla tactics, they're doing all sorts of things. And Mik Turner is kind of the guy who is behind, mastermind this. He's smart, he's good at fighting, he keeps the Federal ships on the run, and the whole thing is an embarrassment to the Federation. And eventually, they simply get fed up. Okay, and so Alliance warships, from all these various different systems here, they take over. They defeat the Federal ships in battle a number of times, and it's basically then only a matter of time. The rest of the rest of the Alliance force, the rest of the Federal forces in the system, ultimately surrender to these independent systems centered around Alioth, and boom. Suddenly the Federation just gives up. Okay, it became too popular. The Federation withdraws, and what's left is a series of independent systems on the borders of the Federation, which effectively push the Federation away. Okay, now what that means then is that Mick Turner and co. Out of this, the essence of the Alliance is formed. Now, the Alliance is very, very different to the Federation Empire. Obviously, much younger. It's not a hereditary system like the Empire. It's not a capitalist system like the Federation became. It is a much younger sort of structure. In some ways, much more fragile. Okay, but a very different political entity to everything else. So I've just parked outside Donaldson Base, and we're in orbit around Turner's World now. So this war basically occurs for about 5 years, and so at the end of the year 3230, then the Alliance of Independent Systems, as it's originally called, is founded. Okay, and over the next about 20 years to the year 3250, which is the date of the third game, about 20 systems join up, and they become the founding members, if you like, of the Alliance. It's quickly shortened to just the Alliance, but technically it's still the Alliance of Independent Systems. They are not a cohesive structure. Lovely British British flagged Cobra there. I love that. That was really cool. So they're not a unit. Okay, each system is still independent. They just come together and call themselves the Alliance. So many of them revolted from federal and imperial control, and so you've got this new political entity where for 1,000 years in the entire Elite Dangerous timeline you've had only federal or only empire. Suddenly you've got a third way. Okay, and you don't have to align your culture on your planet exactly in order to be a part of the Alliance. You're still independent. You can still forge your own destiny. You can be your own system. Okay, but you don't have to align yourself with the Empire or the Federation anymore. And so it's kind of like suddenly it is bad, Mike. You've got it exactly right. It's kind of the EU in space. Okay. So whereas Elite has drawn on real politics a lot. So we've discussed way back when we started off with this tour how the Federation is kind of like the US in space but on steroids, and the Empire is kind of like the Roman Empire and the British Empire combined in space. Okay, but the Alliance is very much the European Union in space. Okay, so there's an assembly, all right, which is a central body where people talk about stuff that's important to the Alliance, and they establish policies and treaties and things like that. But it's not law like it would be in the Empire, okay, or the Federation. It's a treaty. It's like a contract that you negotiate between various different places. The Alliance has an arbitration unit, so disputes between independent systems are kind of arbitrated, and it does all that kind of stuff as well. And so they're loosely connected. They're not a cohesive whole like the Empire would be or the Federation would be. They are brought together for a common interest. Now there is, in the lore, it doesn't exist in the game as far as we know. We've never seen it, okay? But there is in the lore. There is an Alliance Navy. Okay, it's not very big. But there is an Alliance Navy, and there's an Alliance Defence Force. Okay, so they do have a military capability, and basically each independent system is asked to provide a certain amount of military capability to the Alliance as a whole, if the Alliance kind of needs it, and that's kind of how it works. So, but the Alliance is more kind of like the civil service in space. Am I drifting? Sorry, my ship. Let me just pop back in the cockpit. Maybe I've got my engines on slightly. There we go. I am. There we go. Ooh, why's that coming up? Go away. I can't. I can't see a thing. There's a ship in front of me. I think my engines are off. There we go. Yeah, they are. So that's good. Right, there we go. Let's go back out. There we go. So yeah, so the Alliance is kind of like a civil service in space. It's very much looser control than it would be in the the Federation and the Empire. Very different kind of structure. So that is what ultimately happens. Now, Mick Turner is the guy behind this. Now, there is a lot of lore about Mick Turner in the previous games. Okay, a lot of lore about Mick Turner in the previous games and some of the things that he did. Okay, so he is very, very significant in the earlier games. He comes from a system that doesn't appear to exist anymore. He is apparently instrumental in the formation of the Alliance, and he also meets a woman called Meredith Argent, and now she's a scientist, and she's a direct descendant of somebody called Walter, who's a wealthy industrialist from this kind of part of space as well. So there's agents of change all happening around here. Now, these two characters were really, really significant in the original history of this kind of part of the world. So in Elite Dangerous, the Alliance exists, and for various reasons it took a long, long time for any Alliance branded ships to even appear in the game. Okay, so all the main ships like the Anaconda and the Imperial ships and the Crate and the Adder and the Cobra, all these designs were specifically non-Alliance ships. It took a long time for Alliance ships to appear, even though the Alliance was an important part of the game lore. Obviously fairly recent in the lore as well. And the Alliance has always been a bit of a poor stepchild in the game. Compared to the other factions, it took a long time to get some Alliance specific ships. We've never seen an Alliance capital ship in the game as yet. Obviously we've seen an Imperial one, the great big Interdictor class ships, and we've seen the Federal, the big Federal ships as well. Haven't seen an Alliance one. According to the lore, they do exist, but we've not seen one yet. So they're supposedly out there somewhere. Doing alliancey things, okay. But the Alliance is kind of in terms of the game is kind of a little bit of the poor stepchild. But in the strength of the lore, it's not. It's on an almost equal power footing now with the Federation and the Empire. So there's interesting stuff going on at that point in time. Now, going back to the previous games, however, there's a lot more to this. Now, if you look up Mick Turner and Meredith Argent in the Elite Dangerous lore, there's very, very little on them. You'll find a couple of Taurus beacons. that just mention they exist. Okay, that these two people existed and maybe did some stuff, and that's about all you can find. But let's compare and contrast with what happened in the previous Elite. So you remember I had it running, I still got it running up here. So this game, let's just pop over to here for a moment. In this game, an awful lot of stuff happens regarding these two individuals. They are mentioned in the lore numerous times, and there's a lot more going on here than Elite Dangerous appears to, so far, have told us about. Now, we don't know at this point whether or not this piece of the story has been retconned or not. Some of it certainly has, because the Thargoid encounters have changed. But let me introduce you to what was going on, and I'm going to let you make your own judgments about this, because I'm not convinced that it's all been retconned. I think the fact that these two characters are mentioned, but their stories are sort of curtailed in the Elite Dangerous universe, is very similar to the way the whole Thargoid tale has been retold a little bit. So I got the feeling these guys may make a return at some point. We'll have to wait and see how the story comes out. Now, in this game, you will recall that there are various newspaper articles. Okay, the various newspaper articles about what goes on in this game, and what that means is, we can go and review those articles, right? We can go and review those articles. So let's go and have a quick look, because in here there is information. Now, I'm pinching this from a site called jades.org, which is a website which is a little bit stuck in the 90s, but it's interesting. Okay. Now, what happens is, in the Elite Dangerous timeline, Mick Turner is ultimately killed. Okay. Now, I haven't found a reference in the Elite Dangerous lore to his death. Okay, so somebody may be able to tell me that's written down. So I haven't found it. So in the Elite Dangerous lore, as far as I'm aware, Mick Turner is just mentioned as having a partnership with Meredith Argent that would continue for many years. Okay, and so, but in the original game, or the previous game, he died, or at least he went missing in unusual circumstances. He was last seen, his last known whereabouts were in the Pelion system. Now, you may recall from your previous lore something about this system. So let's just go and have a quick look at the map. Over here, you'll notice, if I can look it up, because I think I've searched for it before. Pleione, I think it's pronounced. Okay. He disappeared way out here. Now, some of you may know this area of space. It's the Pleiades Nebula. Okay. Pelion is, according to the previous game, the last known position, the last reported position of Mick Turner. Okay. He went missing, and he was out in the Pleiades. Now, I wonder why he was out in the Pleiades. Okay, but according to the previous game, that's where he went missing, and we know this because the game gives us a mission to go there. Okay, and if you can read this, I don't know if you can, it's a little bit small, but I'm going to read it out for you. Following the death of Mick Turner, okay, one of the magazines reports that the Requiem will be held on the planet Argent's claim in Alioth, okay, where we are right now, on the 5th of October 3252. So you have to go there. Blah, 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 blah. It reports here that you are told to set off to the Pleione system in the Pleiades to go looking for him. It was the last system Mick Turner explored, okay, and photograph the remains of his ship and recover his flight recorder. Okay. Pleione is protected by a military defense satellite which had reported Mick Turner's position to these guys. Do you remember INRA? The Intergalactic Naval Reserve Arm. We discovered them last week. and then you require a nuclear missile to delete to deal with this military. So INRA are up to tricks again. Now these are the guys who came up with a solution for the Thargoids, okay, that involved genocide, and they tricked our Commander Jameson into dealing with them last week. So according to this mission, you will have to deal with the defense satellite and do some scanning, and you pick up, you get photographs. You find this flight recorder, and you discover the floating remnants of a Thargoid vessel. Okay, so it appears that, and there's alien artifacts and all sorts of things going on in here. So it appears in this game that Mik Turner was up to something with the Thargoids. What was he doing? So now none of this, as far as I've been able to tell, has been confirmed in Elite Dangerous, but there are some oddities. Okay, there are some oddities, because later on in this mission, we go down here, is you are required. You're told here that Turner found a Thargoid shuttle in the Polaris system. Okay, the Polaris system, and they want you to go and investigate. Okay, so you try and retrace the steps here. Okay, you can get to the Pleiadian system. You can go and have a look around there. Have a snoop around. It's worth having a look. The Polaris system also exists. It's a little way off. Okay, now it requires a permit. Okay, it requires a permit to get in. And it required a permit in the previous game as well, and you were given this permit by said authorities in order to get into the Polaris system. Now, it still requires a permit today. We can't plot our way to the Polaris system. It tells us we need a Polaris permit. There appears to be no way to gain the Polaris permit in Elite Dangerous. It's been like this for a long, long time. And for those people who knew the lore of the original game, they're wondering, why is this the case? The system is locked. The system is entirely isolated. And the reason for this may be the continuation of this storyline. Because if there's no way to get there, there's no way to confirm the next bit. And the next bit looks like this. Here's about the Thargoid Mycoid mission. So this is similar in some ways to what we encountered with Commander John Jameson the other week. Okay, but in this case, in the previous game, you were the hero. Okay, it was a single player game, and you have to do some kind of weird things. You actually end up talking to the Thargoids themselves, and when you arrive there, so what happens upon your arrival in Polaris? You will get an unusual message about trespassing on military territory. It appears to be a military system. Okay, there's a Polaris 3D planet. We can't even ascertain that because we can't see inside the system. You dock with the Thargoid shuttle in this area of space, and you will notice that there are suddenly a lot of radar blips around you. A look at your system map reveals that you are now a long way from Polaris, and you're now in the unexplored system of Myaki. However you pronounce that. Now, look that one up as well. Okay, look that one up as well. Got to spell that right. Yeah, there we go. Another system that doesn't exist. Okay. So, the trail of what happens to Mick Turner in the lore sort of stops somewhere around here. Okay, so he goes missing, and that's not confirmed in Elite Dangerous, but in the previous games he goes missing, and the trail leads to Polaris, and then in that game you're able to converse with the Thargoids and help them with the fact they've been attacked by INRA with the Mycoid virus, and you're able to do something about it. That ending of that game appears to have been retconned in Elite Dangerous, such that the Thargoids have come back, having survived the mycoid virus but without our help, and now we're kind of at war with them. But Polaris is still permit locked. So whatever's there, and we do not know, there's no way in. I've looked at it quite hard. And I've found no way to get into the Polaris system. There's nothing. There are no factions around here which allow you to gain credibility. It's locked off. Now, is that future content? Maybe it is, but that's where that part of the story stops. Okay, we can't go any further. But Polaris has got something to do with INRA. It has something to do with the Thargoids, it's kind of a dead end. Okay. It doesn't tell us anything about it. It just says there's no economy, there's no state, there's no government, there's apparently no population, and there's no allegiance. So, odd. Okay. Now, for a planet that isn't very far away from home, okay. Polaris, actually, for those of you who don't know, you can see it from Earth. You can see it in the northern hemisphere of the Earth. If you look up at night, it's the pole star. Okay, it's the pole star. It is a star that's very familiar to us on Earth. So it's not like it's a weird, out of the way place. It's just locked off. Okay, we just can't go there. We can't find any information about it. There's very little. There's nothing in the official Elite Dangerous lore, but it's got something to do with INRA. It's got something to do with the Thargoids. And it's got something to do with the Alliance. Okay, they're all connected somehow. Now, Mick Turner went off and found something, okay, to do with the Thargoids. Disappeared, right? Disappeared. Now, again, in Elite Dangerous, the colleague he had was a lady by the name of Meredith Argent. Now, these two obviously had some. Whether they had a romantic relationship isn't entirely clear. All it says in the Elite Dangerous, they were lifelong partners. Okay. Now, she was a scientist. He was a kind of fighter pilot. But these two were really the driving force behind the creation of the Alliance. And Meredith ultimately became chair-elect of that thing. And they were. She built a company, and this is another mysterious company. There's plenty of those in the Elite Dangerous universe, but this one is interesting mostly because it's not talked about. She created something called AAAI, okay, which stood for Argent Aerodynamics Amalgamated Incorporated, which is a bit of a mouthful. But that is the name of the company she created. And they had a shipyard in New Rosyth, which is supposed to be on Turner's World. Okay, now we are on Turner's World right now. So let me just quickly go back to where we are. Now here, I don't know if I can see where Turner's World actually is. Can we actually see it on the screen? I'm just going to rotate my ship slowly around. Where's the actual planet? Can anyone see it? I can see a lot of ships. I can't see. There it is. Right, so there's Turner's World, okay, over there. Named after Mik Turner, not surprisingly, okay? So, that's what all this aerospace is. Now, if we have a look quickly at the system map, you'll notice that over here, this is it here. So, actually, it's Alioth 5 is a gas giant, but in orbit around it, we have Wicker's World, we have Turner's World, and Argent's Claim. So, the characters have planets named after them at this point in time. Okay, so Turner's World, obviously named after Mick Turner, and Argent's Claim here, named after Meredith Argent. And we're in orbit around. Now, according to the original lore, the shipyard for Meredith's organisation, AAAI, was actually on Turner's World. But in the Late Dangerous, obviously, we can't land on these planets. Okay, we can't zoom down there, and none of the other places exist. Okay, we have other bases and things, but it's supposedly a very advanced shipyard on this planet, but there's no way to go and look at the surface. Okay, so that's a problem. We can't really confirm that. But notice there is a faction here, Turner Research Group, and this one is also the same. So maybe they've got something to do it, but this is obviously 56 years on from the previous time frame. So something strange happened here. Now, in the original game, the third game. Let me just hide the UI again. Let's zoom out while we're looking at this. A nice view of the planet there. Look at that, very pretty. Out there with the Alliance, okay, is the this AAAI company headed up by Meredith Argent, who's a very, very smart lady, okay, and she has a lot of money. And they develop a good economy in the Alioth system and the surrounding areas. And they built this shipyard owned by this company, and they developed new spacecraft, okay, and new exploration capabilities. Lots of new ships, according to the lore, come out of this partnership. Okay, now we can see one of these ships. One of the most famous ones is a Quest class ship. Okay, now this does not exist in the universe of Elite Dangerous as far as we know. Okay, but you can see it. You can see it because it's in this game. And that's so if I would direct your attention back to this, and we restart the game. Have a look at. It's worth us watching actually. So let's do a new game. It's worth us watching the intro sequence here. Okay, so this is the intro sequence to the third game, which is worth watching in its entirety this time round because of what happens. Now, this is a Quest class ship. Okay, this is effectively the Uber ship in Frontier First Encounters. It's large, it's a heavy duty ship, it's fast, it's got a lot of armaments, it has a very strange tail which wags for reasons nobody really understands why, but this is the Quest class ship. It's the Uber ship in this game, and it's basically the end game content for the player driven story. Okay, but this intro sequence is showing you this ship flying around. Okay, it is an old ship, yeah, I agree. But it's an Alliance vessel. Okay, it's an Alliance vessel, and we're taking a low pass over a planet there. Incredible graphics from 1995, of course. And you can see here's the ship flying around doing its thing, going past the space station, doing all this kind of stuff. It was a military drive ship, which means you couldn't fuel scoop, you had to keep refueling yourself. That's a very good observation, Zombie. But it did have a good jump range as a result for such a large ship. Okay, now there's another odd looking ship coming out here, which I think this becomes a victim of. The Quest class ship. I think that's an Imperial trader or explorer or something. So yeah, it does have a vague chieftainy feel to it, doesn't it? Now the police have taken a dim view of this. These are different class of Vipers. I'm not quite sure. There we go. It's an explorer. That's it. Slightly different class of Vipers. Now they attempt to deal with this ship, and it doesn't go very well, as you might expect. So some attacking going on there. And I think it drops some mines on them or something. Does it drop some? Yeah, it drops some mines. There you go. Boom. Don't miss. Okay, so one of them gets destroyed. That's one of the police ships down. And then, watch what happens next. Ooh, green lasers and a TARDIS-y thing going on. Okay, so something dun 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 Thargoids. Okay, that's the intro of that game. And that's the Turner class ship. Now, according to the lore of this game, that was the Turner class ships were developed by Meredith and Mick as part of AAAI's sort of New Rosyth shipyards, and they were deliberately designed to be able to track down and locate Thargoids. That's what they were for. Okay, and Mick was testing the ship when he disappeared in the Pleione system, which is in the Pleiades. Okay, so it's no accident that our encounters with the Thargoids happen in the Pleiades area. Okay, and that is very consistent with the rest of the lore of the game. And Mik Turner went missing in unusual circumstances, and the trail that you followed as the player in the previous game led you to the Polaris system, where you encountered Thargoids. And in Elite Dangerous, the Polaris system is locked off. Okay, so something weird and wonderful is going on. We can't get to the Polaris system. There's nothing there. Now, according to all of this stuff, the Alliance goes forward a little bit. Now, none of this exists in the universe of Elite Dangerous today. There is no Quest class ship. Meredith and Mik Turner's biographies in Elite Dangerous are curtailed. All it says is Meredith became the owner of the new Rosyth shipyards and the company Argent Aerodynamics Amalgamated, and Mik Turner went missing, but they were partners for life, and that's all it says. Okay. So their biographies are very much cut short in Elite Dangerous. We don't really know what happened to it, and it's almost as if their stories have been suppressed by someone. Now, according to the previous game, I'm just going to go and there's conflicting reports about this stuff. It's a bit weird. According to the previous game, these Quest class ships were out there, and shortly after Mik Turner disappeared, then INRA is alleged to have attacked the new Rosyth shipyard and just effectively destroyed it before the Alliance could respond. So INRA, the organisation that delivered that mycoid virus that we heard about last week, attacks and destroys the advanced tech shipyard in Alliance space and then retreats. And that whole history has almost sort of been deleted from the records of Elite Dangerous. So we really don't know whether that has been retconned as part of the story, or whether it's just been suppressed for us in the lore of Elite Dangerous to be revealed at some future point in time. Now, there's only one clue to this, and we're going to go and visit him. Okay, we're going to go and visit him. So some of you will know of him, some of you won't. Many of you will have made this connection, I'm sure. But there's a guy who we can talk to. We can go and visit. Now he's wrong button. Sorry, clicking on the wrong screen. We can go and visit somebody who may or may not know something about this. If you go to your engineers panel, you'll see. Where is he? Oh, I haven't got him on the list on this one. But way down the bottom here. Actually, I haven't unlocked him. Some of you will. I'm just going to look up where he is. Because I can't remember. Where's his base? There we go. He actually, I think he's in the. He's not far away, is he? Yeah, he's actually here, and he's in the Alioth system. So, where's his actual base? Let's go to Alioth 4A, because we can talk about him on the way. Yeah, I've forgotten I hadn't unlocked him. Oh, no, too far. Let's go to Alioth 4A. Okay, so there it is. Right. So everyone head over there. taking me a while to charge my Frameshift Drive. I can go there, but the base will shoot me down. Okay, well, I bet not. I won't go too close in that case. There we go. On Alioth 4A is an engineer's base, okay, and he's one of the later ones to unlock. You have to go through the others to get there. Now, I haven't bothered on this account because I don't really need it. I've really done exploration on this one, but I'll see how close I can get without getting into trouble. But his name is Bill Turner, okay, Bill Turner, and it is he claims to be the son of Mick Turner. He claims to be the son of Mick Turner. Now, there's some doubt as to this, whether this is actually true or not. Yeah, so I've got the same problem actually, Blade. It's my exploration account too, so I haven't unlocked him, which is a bit of annoying, but you know, it's all part of the lore. Okay, so who is Bill Turner? Is he really the son of Mick Turner? In which case, is he Meredith Argent's son as well, or you know, did did Mick do other things and had other things? We don't know. Okay, we're not sure. He claims to be the son of the elusive late Mick Turner, and that's the only reference we have to the fact that Mick Turner is effectively dead. Okay, and you know, he can do things with plasma accelerators and stuff. So he has a base, a very, you know, he's quite sophisticated. He's an engineer. He can tinker with things. He knows stuff. Okay, he's a okay. So. Dr. Drew, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that, has unlocked it. Okay, well we'll follow Dr. Wur down, if that's how I pronounce it. So we'll see what happens when we get there. But I don't want to get too close. But anyway, so Bill Turner is supposed to be the son of Mick Turner, who's instrumental in creating the Alliance, and it appears there's a connection with the Thargoids. INRA made a preemptive strike in the Alioth system not that long ago and took out the base, which seems to have done away with Meredith Argent as well. She seems to have disappeared from the lore at about that time. And we don't know the details, okay? We don't know the details of what happened there. So it'd be interesting to see. I think that if you don't have the permit, you won't even see the engineer base. Well, you know, we can test the game and see what happens. That might be quite fun. So let's pop down to Alioth 4A, because this is another bit. You know, this is the Elite Dangerous game teasing us a bit, okay? Because Bill Turner may or may not be the son of Mick. He claims he is, okay? So we know Mick Turner is still a character in the Elite Dangerous universe. So is everything else that he did? He went searching for the Thargoids. Did he find them? What happened in the Polaris system? We don't know. All of these things are questions which require answers, and we haven't had them. And there has been very, very little about the Alliance in the Elite Dangerous lore to date. You know, we just haven't heard too much about them and what's been going on. But it seems, general observations seem to be that the Alliance has slightly better technology than the Federation and the Empire, almost as if they've been able to reverse engineer things. And there's certainly lots of suggestions in the law and rumours in the law that the Alliance technology, particularly centred around AAAI, this strange company, have somehow managed to reverse engineer Thargoid technology in some fashion. Okay, now there is something about this that I know about, which some of you won't, unless you've read the book that I wrote, Elite Dangerous Premonition. Now I looked through all the lore and asked Frontier for permission to expand Bill Turner a little bit and connect him up with David Braben's mysterious club. Okay. The club is yet another down there now. So, Commander Dr. Word, do you have a... Let's see if I can lock onto you actually. Where are you? I've got a beacon there. It's not that one. There we are. Right, he's 1.4 light seconds out. Okay, so I'm going to just throttle back at this point and wait for him to kind of go in. I'll lock onto burnt jello. Right, sorry. Okay, I will do that. He's at the base. Right, so why can't I see him on my scanner? That's a bit weird. Get back out. I'm in my wing with him, so... Oh, there we go. Unselect. Okay. I'll be a bit careful which way I fly around. Right, so what have I got? Nope. There we go. Right, I'll get around the other side of the planet.
Falcon, Belacy, Alpha, November, Delta.
Yeah, excuse me while I
Automated
just...
flight control
about it.
protocol initiated. Please submit a request prior to landing.
I think the throttle back there. I'm not sure if I'm on the right side of the planet or not. There. Too close. Looks to be on the other side. Oh, he can't approach. Okay, well, that's interesting. So maybe that's going to cause us some fun. But anyway, I'll give it a try. So the base, yeah, it can't approach. Okay, so the base is marked as hostile. That kind of makes sense that you wouldn't be allowed to go and visit. The base is there but hostile. Okay, well that's interesting. Well, I'm just going to let my Frameshift Drive cool down. The Alliance is mixed up with the Thargoids and INRA, and Mick Turner and everything else is all connected to this. And Bill Turner appears to be the son of Mik Turner. Now, in the lore I was given, the club is yet another organisation which is clandestine. It seems to be vying against the Dark Wheel for a lot of the time. It's kind of the way it reads. And it is another sort of shadowy cabal. It has an agenda, and its agenda is actually to protect humanity against external threats. And one of those threats is the Thargoids. And they have this agenda to both try and protect humanity against threats from outside, like the Thargoids, but also to... there we go. It's very bright. To seed the implementation of new technology into general usage, kind of at their whim. They have contingency plans and all sorts of things going on to try and protect humanity. But it's very much a case of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. All right. Wing signal. There we go. So let's follow that here. And so the club think nothing of throwing away entire star systems in their quest to sort of ultimately save humanity. That's what their modus operandi seems to be. That's what they're trying to do. And in Elite Dangerous Premonition, I asked whether or not I could connect Bill Turner more formally to Mick Turner, and I actually get one of the protagonists in my story to go and investigate Bill Turner, trying to find out what he really is up to. Okay, and because he seems to be operating the Alioth system fairly obviously, despite the fact he's got this kind of super cool base here on Alioth 4A. The outcome of all that is that right, so there we go. I'm in proximity to this base, but as you can see, There it is. But I better not get too close because it's hostile. So some of you are entitled to approach.
Treated with lethal force.
I will be met with lethal force. Nice. Okay, so I'm not going to fly over there because they're going to shoot at me. But you guys can check it out. So I've sort of, asked for permission to formalise Bill Turner's relationship with Mick Turner, and Bill Turner very much, therefore, in the story that I wrote, does have connection to Thargoid technology. So I sort of tried to cement that in the lore a little bit, because part of me was saying, well, that's sort of how the lore's presented itself anyway, the information that I've got. And this isn't sort of top secret now because Premonition's been out for 3 years. And if you want to, you can obviously go and read the book. It is, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sort of cement this, and I was hoping that Frontier would run with that and continue the story of Bill Turner and maybe explore the Thargoid and the INRA connection, and Polaris would ultimately be unlocked and we'd have things to do and da 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 da. Now, INRA was put in the game. We've seen the INRA bases. That whole mycoid story definitely happened. Jameson was there, and so on and so forth. Now, Bill is connected to that. There is reverse engineering of Thargoid technology going on in the Elite Dangerous universe. There is more about this that some people inside the universe of Elite Dangerous know, and we don't yet know officially. So something was going on with the Thargoids. There's more to that Thargoid story than meets the eye. And Bill knows something about it. Okay, Bill Turner, the engineer, knows something about it. Polaris is still locked. Trouble is, we can't dig any further into this piece of the story inside Elite Dangerous, which is a bit frustrating. So there we go. So has the club actually been mentioned in game? Not that I'm aware of. It was something that was very much behind the scenes, quite deliberately. It doesn't officially exist. So it's not like the Dark Wheel in the sense that it's well known as a myth to the people of the Elite Dangerous Galaxy. It kind of luxuriates in the fact that it nobody knows it's there. It's just a collection of kind of resources. David Braben called it the military-industrial complex. So it's almost, in some ways, like it's not an organisation. It's just a very small group of people who influence much other, bigger corporations like Sirius, like the Alliance, like the Federation, like the Empire. The club itself is a tiny little piece that has massive influence over the entirely dangerous. It's kind of a Illuminati in space, I think. But a lot of these things are in space. Okay. Well, that's a good point, actually. There we go. Military-industrial complex, Mick. I hadn't even thought about that. Maybe that's a clue. That's very cool. Yeah, well done for spotting that. I hadn't thought about that at all. I don't know. Illuminati is that sort of thing. It's an Illuminati-esque kind of thing. Now the club are supposed to have been aware that the Thargoids were coming long before we knew about it. Okay, and they've been prepping for it. And it appears that the club have had an ability to suppress knowledge of things like INRA, because INRA was very well known in the previous games. But in the universe of Elite Dangerous, it's almost like a myth until we uncover those bases, which do in fact actually exist in Elite Dangerous, as we saw. Bill Turner's connection to Mik Turner is uncertain, but appears to be substantiated. INRA definitely exists, the Thargoids clearly exist, but how these things are all connected, at this point in time, the story seems to have stopped. And it's kind of like, okay, what happens now? So Polaris is locked. We can't go investigate that. We know Mik Turner went to the Pleiades and disappeared. Did the Thargoids nab him? Did the Thargoids kill him? What happened? And then what's interesting about all this is about this time in the lore. Bear in mind, we talked about hyperspace and various other bits and pieces, previously. Should really zoom out there, shouldn't I? There we go. just about see Bill Turner's base in the background there, which is quite fun. Sort of angle it up there. There we go. Yeah. So about this time, remember, we have primitive hyperdrive technology. Very primitive hyperdrive technology up until just before the Elite Dangerous game starts, and then suddenly, apparently out of nowhere, comes the Frameshift Drive. Okay, the Frameshift Drive is suddenly, it's a bit like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a wonderful new method of crossing interstellar distances. It's like the infinite improbability drive. But the Frameshift Drive is a revolutionary increase, a factor of 10, a factor of 100 more effective hyperspace mechanism than we had in the previous games according to the lore. And it comes into existence in the year 3297. That's when it's first mentioned in the lore of Elite Dangerous. The Frameshift Drive is a brand new invention in the last decade. It's entirely tied with the Elite Dangerous game, of course, in the way it works. But in the lore, it's a very, very new capability, and it's odd that the Alliance has this amazing capability. These shipyards, these amazing ships, it may be reverse engineering Thargoid technology, and suddenly, boom, out of nowhere comes the Frameshift Drive. Now, does that mean that the Frameshift Drive is reverse engineered Thargoid technology? We're not sure. Ooh, right. Fading out of existence. Oh, somebody's chopping off my camera, aren't they? Which is all good fun. But it's not entirely sure. Okay, it's not entirely clear. But there's a strong possibility that the Frameshift Drive is a product of reverse engineering. It may have come out of Alliance technology. It may have come out of those sort of things, and there's been all sorts of weird and wonderful cover-ups associated with INRA, associated with the Alliance, and all that sort of stuff. And we talked about that Galcop had superior technology in some places, and that was all kind of lost. So there's all sorts of threads here that may or may not be connected up with what happened to the Alliance, and the fact that the Alliance came into existence at all. Okay. But if there was a way to continue this story, Bill Turner would be probably the guy to follow and find out. Now, it doesn't seem that you can actually get. It doesn't seem to be anything there in the game at the moment for us to go and pursue. But Polaris and Bill Turner are the two obvious leads to follow. In terms of continuing this story, and even the Alliance itself, it's founded by two people who have connections with the Thargoids, and there's something going on with INRA there. That whole piece of history is interwoven in this part of space. So the Alliance has got secrets, right? So they're definitely ones to watch, I think, in the universe of Elite Dangerous, to see what happens next, because we may find out some more about what's going on through these people. So I'd highly recommend that's the thing to kind of keep an eye out for, because it's a bit of a mystery. Okay, it's all a bit weird, and the mycoid thing for the Thargoids is very much a thing in Elite Dangerous. We know that happened. We saw that last week, and these characters are all tied up in that as well. So somebody's just mentioned actually the Oresrians and the Claxians. Okay, now this is interesting. Now there have been retcons of Elite lore over the years. So if I go right back to the beginning, and it's a very good question, because it's quite hard for us to establish what's been retconned and what hasn't been retconned over the years. So, but let's go back to the beginning. Now I can clear up some of this, because if we go back to the original Elite game, okay, now I'm just going to pop this up on screen. You know this, you've seen this a few times by now. This is my trusty ZX Spectrum Ranger. Look at that, doesn't it look fab? We got the Supernova. I don't know if you saw on my Saturday stream. I was really pleased actually. We got the Supernova mission. We rescued some people from an exploding star, which was a very cool thing to do, which has not happened in Elite Dangerous actually. It's on the ZX Spectrum, so there you go. But in this game, let's just get where it dots. There we go. If you go to a particular planet, you'll notice that it's quite often populated by creatures, yellow rodents in this case. Or if we go over here, it's populated by more yellow rodents. If we go over here, it's populated by human colonials. Okay, makes sort of sense. And here it's populated by small blue bony birds. And over here, more human colonials. That's okay. What about down here? Human colonials, a bit boring. Colonials, a bit boring. What about this one? Okay. Human colonials. Come on, give me something interesting. Red slimy lizards. Okay. Now, the implication in the lore. There's more human colonials. Okay. Now, the implication in the lore for this game is that the universe was populated with sapient creatures. Okay. And occasionally you would come across edible poets and slightly weird things. So the universe of Elite, the original game, is full of, I mean, human colonials are by far the most common, as you can see, but there are, keep looking for some odd ones. Humans, it's giving me boring stuff at the moment. Blue furry humanoids, you know, so there's odd things out there. Bony felines. Also, small bug-eyed lizards. Yeah, so there's all sorts of weird stuff out there. Okay, now, so in Elite, the universe was populated with weird creatures. Okay, that were supposedly sapient that you could have conversations with. Okay, they all went. Okay, they all went in Frontier Elite 2, and the writers' guides that we got for Elite Dangerous basically said, yeah, that never happened. Okay, there never were blue bony felines, which I always thought was a bit of a shame, but the universe is just humans for the most part, and there obviously are the Thargoids. So the Thargoids were always lore, always have been. The blue bony felines and the edible poets and the bug-eyed lizards and everything else. No, that was definitely retconned. But that was retconned early on. Okay, that was retconned in the second Elite game by the year 3200. In fact, the original Elite didn't really have a date actually until Elite Dangerous came along and the timeline was established for the game. Okay, so that stuff was retconned. Now, in the second game, there were no Thargoids. So that sort of stuff, it wasn't pushed along at all. But we did have the Alliance, we did have the Federation and the Empire, so those political structures were established about then. And then the Alliance came along in the third game, and those things have been retained. Okay, those things have been retained. Now, the story that happened in the third game has been retconned to a degree. Elements of it have happened, but in the third game, you were the hero. You actually could fight on behalf of the Thargoids, and you ended up having a Thargoid ship, which was quite cool. A bit weird, but that's how it kind of went. But that retcon that end got retconned as well. The Mycoid Warrior still happened, but a lot of the other stuff didn't. Now, we were given a set of writers' guides by Frontier. Now, there was a lot of fan contributed material put in there, but ultimately it was sanctioned by FDev. So when the Elite Dangerous game first came out, I was given a set of writers' guides along with all the other writers, and some of those writers actually contributed to the writers' guide. So Dave Hughes, that we had on the stream earlier, actually contributed to them, along with people like Alan Stroud and various others, some of whom were fans and some of them were in Frontier, so Michael Brooks and co. Okay, so all that sort of stuff happened. Now, I used those writers' guides as many did others. Now, I didn't do the Thargoids because I figured somebody else would want to do them, and I wasn't all that interested. I fancied do the Empire, so that's where I ended up. Alan Stroud did Lave, for example. Dave Hughes RPG concentrates on all sorts of history about things. Now, as the game progressed, new things were added in and various other bits and pieces were changed. One thing that did really annoy me was that they changed the Imperial Clipper and the Imperial Courier. So the Imperial Courier was originally a really, really big badass ship, and it became this little dinky little fighter, which is very cute and nice, but it's not the original ship, and that's effectively made a small part of Elite Reclamation wrong, because they end up flying a Imperial Courier at the end of the story, which it should be this big enormous ship, but actually isn't. It's a very, very small one. So little things like that were changed, but that's not too big a lore problem. Now, when Frontier came back and asked me to write the second Elite Dangerous book, Elite Dangerous Premonition, they were very clear with me that they wanted a story about the law, because they knew that, well, they said to me, actually, one of the concerns we have is there's a lot of background in the game that isn't easy for us to put into the game because it's just a lot of text. You know, stuff like, you know, what the engineers are really up to, and stuff like, you know, what's going on kind of behind the scenes with the politics and all those kind of things. Someone's shot down one of the fighters, and they asked me to, you know, can you elaborate on that in this book? And I said, well, yeah, sure I can. You know, I can bring that all to life. What do you want the context to be? And so David Braben said, I want people to understand that behind the Elite Dangerous politics is even more shenanigans than we can see, and that's where the idea of the club came from. Now, the club isn't my invention; it was David Braben. Okay, David Braben came up with the idea of the club, so I put it into Premonition and built a story around it. You know, we wanted player activities and all that kind of good stuff in there as well. And as part of that, in the lore, and now obviously you can read it in Premonition, is the story behind the Galaxians and the Eresrians. Now, according to the lore I was given, the Thargoids are split into two camps. Okay, now in the original Elite, Eresrians were another separate insectoid race, but in the Elite Dangerous lore that I was working with, the Eresrians were what they call a separate dynasty. They're very, very closely related genetically, but they're like a different dynasty of the Thargoids. So the Thargoids is humanity's name for these strange creatures. They don't call themselves the Thargoids. They, you know, they identify as Galaxians and Eresrians, and they're effectively having a civil war. Okay, they're effectively having a civil war, and the Eresrians are losing, and the Eresrians are running away from the Galaxians down the spiral arm of the galaxy. And they just happen to be heading in our direction. The club knows this is about to happen because we have encountered, the humanity has encountered the Thargoids before, which has forced us to do that whole mycoid virus thing that Inro is all about. So Inro and the club, again, all intertwined. And that was the setup for Premonition, and Slomi and all the other characters in there. So there's supposed to be two sort of Thargoid factions, really. A civil war. Now, the Eresrians basically know about humanity, and they figure if we go through humanity's space and cause a bit of ruckus, humanity will get all up in arms. We can run through their space. The Galaxians can continue to chase us, but they're going to bump into humanity. And while humanity and the Galaxians are having a little, you know, argy-bargy and fighting each other, we as Eresrians can run away and hide. So the Eresrians are sort of using us as a shield, really, a kind of like a bullet shield, really, to say, right, you guys knack yourselves fighting each other while we scarper off into the rest of the galaxy. That is the setup I was given. Okay, that was the setup I was given to write Premonition, which is 2017. So I was given that in about late 2015, 2016 to write the book, and it came out in 2017. Now, I fully expected that storyline to be continued into the game. So when the Thargoids arrived and started appearing with big, decent-sized ships and causing us aggro in, you know, with AX guns and the Aegis group of people, I was a bit surprised when it didn't follow that storyline. Okay, the Thargoids that we encountered all seemed to be of one type. You know, there were variations on the theme, of course, but there didn't seem to be any evidence of that faction going on. And hand on heart, I don't know what happened. Right? I don't know. My insider knowledge of what Frontier were planning kind of ended at the end of Premonition, and so I don't know whether that lore connection has been kind of retconned or abandoned. Maybe because it was too difficult to continue, or they didn't have the capability to tell that story. But they certainly intended to at that point. humanity was sort of left in the middle, confused as to what the hell was going on. Now, I had many conversations with Michael Brooks back in the day, and he was very, very keen, because he likes his kind of apocalyptic scenarios and his destruction of everything. He was really keen to have the bubble be completely wiped out. Let the bubble burn, he said. And that would have been quite a cool apocalyptic thing, and there were a lot of encounters with the Thargoids weren't going to be just the same old kind of end-of-level baddie thing that they always have been. Just another ship, another here comes an alien race hell-bent on destruction. There was supposed to be a bit more nuance to it, but that doesn't seem to have happened. I don't know whether the Orthrus class ships are a little bit different to the other ones, whether there's anything identifying, but as far as I'm aware, there's been nothing in the game about the two dynasties of Thargoids. Okay, the Osresians and the Klaxians, I don't believe have been mentioned in the game since. So I've got a nasty feeling that storyline has actually been curtailed, and the Thargoids have almost stopped at this point in time as well. So. And what with the stopping of Galnet and the stopping of the CGs and everything that was, mechanics-wise in the game that was supposed to have, has the ability to further the storyline. That's all on hold right now, as we wait for the new era. So I don't know if the story has been paused, has been retconned, has been abandoned, or we're just waiting for the new era to kind of pick it up again. I'm pretty sure the Thargoids are going to come back in one form or another, but I suspect that this storyline has been altered. I'm going to have to wait and see what happens. So, what does that mean for the kind of for the book? It's almost maybe been retconned out of existence. I don't know. It's a shame for me, really, because I'm kind of looking at thinking, well, we had a cool storyline there, but after 3 years, can we really expect it to be continued from there? I don't think we can. It's almost like we're in a parallel universe now compared to that version of Elite Dangerous, where the Thargoids were doing that sort of thing. It doesn't appear that storyline is being progressed in the same way. No, it wasn't the Guardians. The Guardians were always there. Well, the Guardians were there from about version 2.2 of Elite Dangerous, I think. I had lore on the Guardians, and the Guardians are mentioned in Premonition because I knew about the Guardians. So no, the Guardians were definitely there. They were not an afterthought. But exactly what the Thargoids are doing and what the Thargoids are up to is now unclear, and I don't know. I don't know what exactly happens. So there have been retcons, okay, but we've never really been told what the retcons are. We've only been able to look at things like Galnet, look at things in game, and try and determine what it is. Now, if we look in game, and we've done this before, obviously, but if we look quickly in game at the Thargoids, and there won't be anything new in here now after all this time, but we can confirm what we do know. They're in here, but it tells us about society here. It tells us about Thargoid queens and various other bits and pieces, but it mentions nothing about different factions or different dynasties of Thargoids. Okay, it talks about structure. It talks about war with the Guardians, but there's nothing here about Oresians versus Klaxians. Okay, it does talk about a little bit about INRA, and so on and so forth. So something happened, but it now seems to be simplified. Okay, it seems to be simplified. So that, based on what the game is telling us, the lore that I was working with in terms of the two not quite species, but two dynasties of Thargoids, and the kind of internecine conflict between them and all that kind of stuff that was happening, that appears to not be not be here anymore. So I don't know. At the end of the day, there have been retcons. Things have changed. Precisely what is there now is difficult to tell. And this is one of the problems with doing a lore tour. Okay, is that it's very difficult to ascertain precisely what the lore is anymore, because now I'm not working for. I never did work for Frontier. I worked with them, if you like, and I did have the lore Bibles as they were. But I know that those lore Bibles became out of date over time, and they weren't being created, for various reasons, because Frontier didn't need them. They were building a game, so the lore has got diluted in that sense. And at this point in time, in the year 3306 or 2020. A lot of the stuff that we were basing our suppositions on back in 2017, 2018, 2016, all those years before, is no longer as solid as we would like. We don't know precisely what's happening. So some of that stuff has been changed, but we don't know exactly what's been changed. And this is the frustrating bit for me, because as a writer, trying to put stories into a universe, my instinct is always to say, the lore needs to be fairly robust and fairly steady, and you build upon that and you continue the story going forward. You don't just suddenly magically change the background. But that appears to be what's happening, or has happened, and that may be for the classic gameplay trumps lore, so just deal with it. We need it for gameplay reasons, or maybe the lore story is too complicated to do in the game for we can't do that. There's no way to demonstrate that in the game. There's no way to do it, and we want to concentrate on other things, so the lore has to be simplified. There could be all sorts of reasons why it's changed, but it does appear that it's changed, which in some ways is a shame, but at the end of the day, it's Frontier's story to tell. Okay, so or maybe it's been forgotten. Galnet's been shut down. We can't dispute that. It's gone since January. Okay, now maybe it or something like it will come back. We've got no guarantees about that. We don't have any CGs. We don't have the interstellar initiatives. We don't have Galnet at all. We have the historical Galnet, but there's no new story happening in the game. We've talked about before the Codex is a lovely idea, but it's never been updated. There's no new content in it. We can't go into the Codex every week and go, there's a new thing, and look it up. This information here is lovely, but it's totally static, so it's not going anywhere. And we're sort of left at this point with, well, what happens next? Is there anything to follow up? There are lots of little places in the game where clues could be dropped. We've got Polaris, we've got Mik Turner, we've got missing star systems that might suddenly reappear. We've got INRA, we've got the Thargoids, we've got the Aliiance space and all the history behind it, which is what we talked about tonight. All that sort of stuff is there. So there's a mechanism to bring it into the game in terms of storytelling, but at the moment it's not happening. And we've got fleet carriers coming, so that's it. Prop BFC, yes, Halsey. There's an amazing story, and I'm not allowed to tell you, I'm afraid, behind Halsey and what happened to her. You remember, for those of you who don't know this, back years and years ago now in Galnet, Halsey had some strange experience. She used to be president of the Federation, and she had this weird. She went on this trip, had a hyperspace accident, saw some weird stuff, okay, and came back with sort of a message for humanity, but she was deemed lost, and President Hudson replaced her as head of the Federation. Now, Halsey came back, had this weird vision, and she went on the trip, and then literally started the trip. Yeah, quite right. But, and this is what's frustrating for me actually, is in the writer's guides there's something about this. Okay, there is something about this, but I am not allowed to tell you because it hasn't appeared in the game. It's NDA. So there was a whole piece of, and again, this may have been retconned and may just have been given up, but there is something in the lore that, and because it hasn't appeared in the game, it's strictly NDA. I can't. I would be breaking my agreement with Frontier to do it. but explained what that vision was all about. So there was a story thread there to continue. Now it hasn't been continued. Galnet stopped. There's no vehicle to continue that story, so I don't know whether or not they're likely to do things. So is it possible to appear? I don't know. And there's lots and lots of other little threads, like mysterious artifacts on Mars, and the sentient AIs that were lost in space and things like that, which could come back in the universe of Elite Dangerous. Kickstarter Defense Fund to get the secrets out. So I have to bear in mind that I signed a contract with Frontier, and there are certain things there that haven't appeared in the game, thus I'm still effectively top secret. Everything I've told you on the Lore Tour, you can go and find for yourself if you look hard enough. I haven't given away anything that isn't in the game. Hopefully just trying to put it in context for you from previous games, all those kind of bits and pieces. But there was a bunch of story there, which was like, oh, is that going to be continued? When are they going to go and do that? And it stopped, which is kind of like, why would you do that? But and I don't want to get into a moan fest about Galnet and all that kind of stuff again, because I've done that. But it is, it's that's kind of where we are. Okay. We've got this beautiful universe with the Alliance and the Federation and the Empire and the Thargoids and Inra and Galcop and all these sort of things. It's a wonderful universe full of life and interesting political stuff and heroes and heroines and skullduggery and adventure and everything going on, and we're sitting in this universe waiting for cool stuff to happen, and all the news sources have been switched off, so it's a bit of a weird situation to be in. So I don't know. It's a strange situation to have found ourselves in, and the idea behind the Lore Tour was to kind of bring the prehistory of the game to life, and that sort of is bringing us up to date with events in the Elite Dangerous universe. We're now, if we summarise, we had leaving Earth with the Federation, the Empire forming. The Alliance is much later on, in the last sort of 100 years or so. We've had the colonisation of Lave, we've had the arrival of the Thargoids, we've had the weird stuff of Inra and the mycoid virus. All we've got less to talk about now in the next couple of weeks is the Guardians, which is next week's episode, and then the what happened with the the story behind Salome and various other bits and pieces, which sets us off on a extended trip to the Formidine Rift and so on and so forth. So all that's still to come, but we're running out of lore now. Okay. After all this time, we're running out of stuff to talk about, because the story has been told, and the story has stopped at the end of last year, effectively. So there's I can't go much further, because there's nothing to talk about. I can go back over it many times and answer questions and stuff, but the lore has stopped as of the end of last year. There is no new story. The lore is what it is, and there are no events occurring at this point in time, other than the stuff that players are generating. So player politics is interesting. So it's all kind of good stuff. So that there's that. Now, so what's going to happen? That's a very long way of answering the question. Was it retcon? So apologies for the ramble, but I'm always interested in this stuff, and it always strikes me that Elite Dangerous has this potential for story. Now, will there be some stuff about fleet carriers? Yes, I suppose we could talk about those. Next week we're going to be talking about the Guardians, so stay out for that one. That was going to be quite good fun. After that, we'll be talking about the Salome story, the in-game Salome story rather than the out-of-game Salome story, which I've already done a podcast on. That will be quite good. And then we are off on an extended expedition, so a few words on that. Basically, we're going to be going, starting from the core worlds in the Riot Ridquat area, and we're going to be flying out to the Zuara, which is the abandoned megaship which forms the basis, the start of the Premonition storyline. So we're going to go and take a quest out there. Now, that is a trip across the Formidine Rift, which some of you will have heard about. And it's a pretty sparse area of space. So if you want to join us on the extended tour, I would very much recommend a ship with a 40 light year jump range as a minimum. And if you can go if you can fill up with Jumpomian, all the add-ons and materials for extended jump range, that's probably a good thing. We'll go out and visit the Zurara just as sort of homage to that that storyline. It's a fairer way out. It's not it's not as much easier than it used to be with the extended ship range, but I'd recommend 40 light years as a minimum, probably 50 if you can manage it for comfort. That'll make your quest easier. When the lore tour comes to an end, and that's actually only 2 weeks' time. We're getting close to the end of the lore now. Once we get to the end of that, we are going on an extended kind of quest across to actually go somewhere rather than just doodling around the bubble. I'm going to be taking a Crate Phantom, for those of you who know. It's my exploration ship of choice, so that's going to be quite good. Some people may be able to bring fleet carriers along if they're available at that point in time, so that's going to have to see if that works. That would be quite good fun, and we'll see what the dynamics of those are. That should be quite interesting. And there'll be various waypoints along the way. So we'll see you on that. That would be quite good fun. But so next week, Guardians. Week after that, the Salome story. And then we'll be off prepping for our expedition the following week, just checking out our ships and making sure they work. And then we'll head off into the black to go and see the Zurara out in the Formidine Rift. And then that will be the end of the lore tour, I'm afraid. We're going to need some more lore, so I must admit I'm pondering at the moment what to do with my stream once the lore tour itself is kind of over. But I'll have a think about that. If you've got any suggestions for me, do let me know. Other things that you'd like to see, because it's been great fun hanging out with people in game and sort of making about. We could also we could reenact some of the big events. I think that might be quite fun. We could have a whole bunch of Empire versus Federal battles or something like that. That might be good fun to try on the way back. So suggestions for post lore tour are very much welcome. We are beginning to run out of lore, so we'll see what happens, and see where we go after that. But we've got a little bit more of the tour to go, so let's not worry about that too much at this moment in time. That would be good fun. So thank you once again, everybody, for your company. Do appreciate it. We've now completed the Alliance with 2 more lore tours to go, and we'll be back next Thursday for more Elite Dangerous, where we talk about the Guardians, and then the Salome story the week after that. Saturday is my classic Elite stream if you want to come and watch that. So we completed the Supernova mission last week. That was great fun, and we also are looking for the other 2 missions on the Spectrum, which are off the top of my head a sort of cloaking device, which is quite cool, and a Thargoid invasion of a space station. So in all its 8-bit glory, that's going to be good fun as well. So that's Saturday. I play a bit of Stellaris usually on Fridays as well, so feel free to tag along to that. But we'll be back next week for more Elite Dangerous lore. It's lovely to have your company. Thank you very much. You guys take absolute care of yourself, and and check out Bill Turner. If you haven't unlocked him as an engineer, it's worth going down that, just so you've got him on your list. You never know, he might come in useful in the future. We'll have to wait and see, won't we? We'll have to wait and see. But you guys take absolute care of yourselves. Have a great weekend, and of course, right on Commanders and 07. So be good. See you soon. Take it easy and have a great time. All the best, my friends. Bye bye now.
So there we have it. That's episode 9, I believe, of the lore tour done and dusted. All very interesting yet again. Learning a lot on the lore of Elite. Much I've forgotten about from my time playing in the past. So it's good to get reacquainted with some of the lore. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, folks. I'm gonna go and clear me wanted status now from scanning that beacon. Yeah, who'd have thought you'd get wanted status for scanning a beacon? No warnings that you shouldn't be there or anything, but good fun. So, hope you enjoyed it, folks, and we'll see you next Thursday on the lore tour. Hopefully I will be getting on, because I'm moving house. and should be in there and all prepped and ready to go for next Thursday. But just in case I'm not, I will do the law tour as soon as I can. I should be okay though. Everything's good to go, so we should be good. Where's the space station I need? There it is. We'll go there, claim me bounty, and yeah, that'll do. So please like, share, subscribe, leave any comments underneath to subscribe. Hit the logo in the top left corner, and to see the other videos in the Elite Dangerous playlist. As usual, hit the logo in the top right. Thanks for watching, folks. Taddy bye.